driving culture forward. This is Hypebeast Radio. I am your host, Robert Marshall. I'm here with a special guest host, Ryan Trinidad. What's up, gang? We don't see the mic raised.
Hello.
Thank
How's
you.
everybody doing?
And today, we have a special guest, Mr. Coltrane Curtis.
Guest, not the Sue special. Just a
No,
guest.
just a guest?
Just
All
a
right.
guest.
Special to me.
All right, first. You're cute too.
I got the radio face for sure. Mr. Coltrane Curtis, again, of Team Epiphany. I think before we dive into it, congratulations is in order. You just had your second child, correct?
We like to call him the last child. Yeah.
The last
There was the golden child first, and now you have the last child. But I just had another boy. He's about 10 weeks now. Scare. He came 4.5 weeks early, born at 4.2 pounds, came home at 3.8 pounds, and 10 weeks later, he's now 14 pounds. So we're very blessed, very, very blessed. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how babies grow. So, I mean, that sounds like it's a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know.
Yeah, it's a lot. He's a big boy now. That's just to say that. He went from wearing preemie clothes to now he's in like 6 to 9 months in the span of a month. So he's huge.
What was his first pair of kicks?
First pair of kicks, wow.
What was the
first pair of kicks that I bought him, first pair of kicks that other people bought him. So none of the kicks have come home.
Okay.
Most people know that when you buy clothes for your kids and you buy crazy sneakers, it's probably like the worst investment ever because they'll never get a chance to wear it, or if they do wear it, they'll lose one of the shoes. My first pair of kicks for him was a pair of my friend Abdul, who lives in DC. He sent me a pair of Air Force Ones, Baby Force Ones, like OG ones from like early 80s in a box. And he sent those, and then we quickly started growing his collection. Now he has a bunch of like dead stock Baby Force 2s. And then I got a couple other gifts. So, he's definitely a swoosh kid, and he's got Baby Force 1s and Baby Force 2s in like 5 different dead stock colorways. So I started him early.
So you guys aren't even bothering with bronzing the first shoes. This is like, no, we're just right into the
we
collection.
didn't bronze the first kid's shoes. The second kid, that you usually find out that you do less for the second kid. We're living up to that. Like, we've absolutely purchased absolutely nothing for this kid. So he's got a lot of hand-me-down stuff, a lot of stuff I sent other parents that they got to send back to me. So you kind of like get that kind of like parental cyclical clothing cycle flow going on. So so I'm getting a lot of clothes back. My friend Marielle, she's a stylist. She does like J-Lo and a bunch of people. She sent us a lot of stuff from her kid 7, and then my brother JDM, who owns Stadium Goods, his son Max, we sent him a lot of like Trico Field. So he's got to bring me that back. So we got a lot of it coming back, So it's like reverse investment.
And how is your firstborn Ellington?
Ellington,
how's he handling it?
He's handling it actually too well. I'm waiting for it to hit the fan. He's being the best big brother possible. I'm the only child, so I don't understand that brotherhood relationship. But he's doing extremely well. This morning I got up early. Count slept through the night, which is a big deal for all the people that don't have kids. When you got a 2 to 3 month and they're sleeping through the night, that's an amazing thing. And Ellington woke up early. He didn't prepare the bottle, but he fed his brother this morning, burped him twice, fed him. So for a 6-year-old, I'm very proud of Ellington. He's trilingual. He speaks fluent Mandarin, writes characters, reads characters, speaks Spanish, and he's 6 years old, and he's headed to the 2nd grade. So I'm really, really proud of that little guy.
I mean, I just have a younger brother, and we're 4 years apart. So, I mean, if I'm allowed to give any bit of advice as a man that doesn't have any children, I would just say, make sure Ellington has to bring him everywhere. Oh. Because there was times where my father didn't make me do that, and I wish he did. Because there is a bit of a gap sometimes, where I was like, no, I'm kicking him aside. I'm 12, he's 8. No, I'm going to hang with the homies.
Oh, well, yeah, I think when you plan for the first kid, and then 6 years later you have the whoopsie poopsie, as Dave Chappelle would say, and you got another kid that's 6 years in age difference. And the funny dynamic between those two is that Ellington is going to have to bring Count, because Count seems like he's going to be the muscle. Ellington is kind of, he thinks he's cute, he thinks he's sweet, and everybody thinks he's his hair is great, and he tans well and all that other kind of fun stuff.
He's on the internet. He's on.
Yeah, he's around. He's around. But his little brother is gonna be his muscle. So we had Ellington, the pretty boy. Now we got the bruiser, and now we're done.
And what happens when co-founder or co-owners of an agency have a child? Do both of you guy goes on like what is it?
Maternity leave? Yeah.
How does that work out for you guys?
It doesn't work out. It just happens,
Yeah.
I think, I'm very fortunate to, be married and in love with my business partner. So, pillow talk for us is like P&L speak, right? So we have a lot to talk about. But, she and I, have a really incredible bond, and we do these things together, we're not as seasoned as most. You're not traditional agency people. We're not Wharton graduates, but we're smart people that know how to, traverse life, and we figured it out, right? So, for Lisa and I, we don't have much family. Lisa's dad passed away. Maybe like 8, 9 years ago. My dad passed away probably like 6 years ago. September 1st. So yeah, about 6 years ago, my dad passed away. So it's and we're not super close with the rest of our family. So and her family lives in Shanghai. So the reality is like it's just us, and then Lisa's a workaholic, so am I. So, with Ellington, I think she might have taken off 4 or 5 days, and she was back to work after that. Pregnancy at 40 is a completely different other thing. So she did take off 3 weeks.
Right.
And, across those 3 weeks, literally from the hospital bed, she was still laptop working. We've been blessed to be able to have some support at home from nannies. And, I didn't know what the hell baby nurses were. I was like, what is this thing? And now it's like, I need this thing, So it's like, I actually had to go to Stadium Goods the other day and turn some sneakers into my office to actually pay for an extra month of baby service.
Oh, no.
But, it's keeping it real.
You got a lot of those, though.
Keeping it real, man.
Yeah,
I didn't give away the key joints.
Okay, all right.
I gave away the dupes.
You have some to spare. I know
you know how it is. You buy one, you buy one to wear, and you buy one to stash.
The ice pair, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the ice pair is on ice over there. So, but knowing JDM, they already sold them. So thanks, Murder.
So it's a kind of hard pivot to Team Epiphany. You guys started some 15 years ago now, almost?
Make me feel old. I'm 42. I'll be 43 this year. 15 years next year, man.
Wow. Okay. And you guys started on, or founded on connecting brands with influencers,
Yeah.
right? Something I think streetwear is super familiar with.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what, then, what was an influencer?
Yeah.
And has the actual definition changed over time?
I'll back into that question. Pause. Yes, it's changed tremendously. It's become a business. When we created the agency 15 years ago as an influencer marketing agency, right? It wasn't that. It was our differentiation point. My dad ran an agency for 20, 25 years. And the couple things he told me was, the cost of business puts you out of business. When you run an agency, you've told so many lies to win a piece of business that when you get a piece of business, you've actually lost it before you started, because now you have to actually produce all the lies.
You promise all this stuff.
We don't lie, so that's like one of the other things. But, when you really think about like influencer marketing, then it was just more about our community and our friends. When I started the agency, going back to what my dad said about overhead, I had consulted with an agency. They were pitching for a piece of lugs business. I had just left, I think it was MTV at the time. So it was crazy. I went from Echo to Complex to MTV to go to lugs, which was crazy. And I was very fortunate that Mark and Seth took care of me extremely well, where they paid me out for a bunch of consecutive years after I left Echo, so I didn't have to turn a profit at Team Epiphany. And then this agency asked me to come in and consult with them for a piece of lugs business, and I was green, I was excited, and we won the piece of business, and I never figured out the compensation piece. The compensation for me wasn't I didn't need a check from them, I needed office space. So from day zero, we were able to barter skill sets and cool points and relationships for office space. And then with that office space, what I was able to do is then give the office space that I had to friends who were in the same predicament as me, who were really looking to kind of leave the current industry that they were in to find a new field. And so that allowed me to hire, not hire, but, house, people like Marielle Hain, who was, just started as being Rihanna's stylist, and my wife was kind of like co-managing her, or my friend Joyce Sevilla, who was my publicist, who just left 5WPR, and my friend Ben, who had just recently left Raucous, and he's a guy who I started the agency with, right? So when you start thinking about it, it's like influence was really about networking communities. It wasn't about a metric. It wasn't about a follower count. Influencers for us are always people first, not a media outlet or a network or a sheer way to amplify a brand message or a product. Right. For us, it was about community. And nowadays it's completely shifted to where, we're a metric, and I wouldn't say me, but I would say others are treated that way. And I think we don't really look at it as such, and so now what you have is an industry who's found a tool in the toolbox, that they don't know what it can do. They know it's sharp. They know if they hit things really hard with it, it'll break or it'll shatter. But when you really look at influence is probably the most important toolbox in any marketer's tool shed, because it's about word of mouth, it's about trust. And when you think about influencer marketing, if they don't engender trust, then it's not really influencer marketing. It's more about pay to play, and It's more about advertising, as opposed to just real people who are trying to connect with other people around the world to create something new and impactful.
Right. Like your whole thing was that you knew the community, that you were very much a part of it. I think over the past week or 2 weeks now, Facebook had announced something along the lines of their brand collabs manager, where they have a program on their site where they're going to link brands to influencers based on whatever stats on their site. So there is no people really involved to help choose which one works best for them. Is this where we're headed?
That's where they're headed.
Yeah.
I call that's where some brands are headed, and I call that womp womp. Like it's kind of like, when you start really thinking about, it's kind of like you think about, technology, and you really think about, automation and will humans be necessary, right? Like there's no substitute for human finesse. There's, you can come up with as many algorithms and metrics and numbers as you want, but the real thing is like there's something in all of us that's about human nature and a gut. And I think the way we activate most of our influencer community, and I use the word activate very loosely, right? It's like I'm activating my friend, like activate spider vision, right? When you think about activating influencers, there's a one-to-one approach, and then there's one to meaningful approach, or one-to-two approach, right? So if a brand was talking to me, or reaching out to me, which many have, right?
Yeah.
They would think I'm Coltrane. I have nice watches, and he's got a great sneaker collection, and he loves cars, and he travels well, and he knows hotels, right? And that's because you don't know me, right? But if people know me and want me to work for their brand, like the brands that really should come to us, or come to me specifically, not us at Team Epiphany, but Coltrane, is like, I love this daddy stuff, like I'm probably, the most of, well-researched dad that understands strollers. I can tell you the difference between an Upper Baby and a Stokey, or whatever that thing is called, or if you want to know about kids' clothes, or if you want to know about cool things to do on a weekend in a big city with your 6 or 10-week-old, like a 10, I'm your guy, right? So the difference is how do you activate me? The only way you know what I'm about is if you actually truly know me.
Right.
We've done programs before where we've relaunched a Heineken bottle in LA. It was I think it was called Arrive Big. It was a couple of years ago, and we came up with this whole program where it was, let's do really creative events and intimate events, small groups of influencers with great amplification coming from it around the launch of this Heineken bottle. And one of the people that we decided to work with in LA to host the event was, I don't want to say mentor, because I'd age him, even though he's like in way better physical shape than me, but like James Bond is like, one of those gods in our lives that I'm very fortunate to have as a peer, a mentor, a friend. And we used James to actually curate the dinner. He hired his friend Chef Ludo and a bunch of different things, but we hired James to actually host this dinner for us. What was interesting about that is that James is sober. Like James doesn't drink, So when you really think about somebody that doesn't drink, helping you kind of create a program for a brand that's, that's a beer, the difference is the fact that, we know that James likes to bring people together. Right. And that's what this program was about. It wasn't about, how many how many beers can you drink in an event. It was more about how can you galvanize and kind of like create a really cool table or a really cool environment of people who are driving culture first in LA. And that's what James is really about. So when you really think about his love of sport, I think it's transcended by his love of bringing people together. So when you really think about that, and James, he was the perfect and the only person to actually do that event. So most people would think like, oh, well, he doesn't drink, we can't work with him. But if you really know him, like his what drives him is bringing people together, and that's what this program was about. So if I didn't know him, and if I'm looking at a metric, I don't think James even has an Instagram account or any social media presence, but that doesn't mean he's not influential. Actually, he's the most influential. Go tell him he's not influential. Fold you up.
Oh, absolutely,
but those are the people and those are the relationships. But I think, influencer marketing is a great tool if you respect it, but if you don't, it can crush you. And we've seen instances of both of them.
Right. Yeah, and then I guess the opposite side of it, that's where these brands and these companies are failing. But how does that affect, or how is that in relation to where the consumers, the actual people that are seeing this, they're weary about it with the lack of quality or authenticity?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about influencer marketing, it's not like carpet bombing. It's more like laser focused, and you need to really understand who you're trying to have a conversation with and who's influencing whom. Right. When we had many taglines at the agency, but probably like halfway through, our matriculation in Team Epiphany, our tagline was "We influence the influencers," and to us, it was really about who's driving culture, and then who's then driving masses. So you have to kind of like take a couple steps back to really figure out who are, who the catalyst. I think one of the biggest things that we really look at influencer marketing is about, it's not about the individual, right? It's about the community that they belong to. If you're, and that's the reason why that whole pay to play model doesn't work, right? Like if you're really about activating a community, I'm all ears. I'm down with that, right? But if it's very easy to pay an individual to do something, but when you have to go pay their community to do it, you can't really afford it, right? So the difference is how do you have the ability to take those dollars that you have to actually activate the community around the sole influencer, and that's basically what influencer marketing is. It's like, you look at Kanye, I think you look at kind of like just the importance of his network and his team, right? And I always say, Kanye, yes, he's great. He's a musical genius, a little wild on a couple other issues, right?
For sure.
But when you really think about it, there are people there that have created the brand that he is, If we were 2 years ago, this conversation wouldn't seem like it was old, but obviously because, Virgil's rise to success, but, Virgil's an architect, he's been able to kind of create what, Kanye's visual looks like on stage. And when you think about, people like Iben or Chris Julian or Derek Watkins or Don C, you really see their importance. And when you really think about influencer marketing, if you know the machine that can create the celebrity, you can kind of pull the celebrity out a little bit, insert a brand, and kind of like make that brand the celebrity. And you can even see the importance of the network to the celebrity of their influencer network. I think it was just literally yesterday or the day before, you can kind of like, you saw Kanye kind of on Chicago radio breaking down and really talking about, I want to be in all these predicaments if I really had Don with me, Right. And I feel him, for a lot of times I didn't really feel him about it, but what he's really talking about is the sphere of influence and the sphere of impact on his life and trust and loyalty and you start thinking about all those different things. It's very, very one-to-one the way in which brands should be approaching influencers. It's like you take one dude out of Kanye's camp, Don, for a little bit, and look how awry the stud goes, so you got to really, really pay attention to, the people who are behind the scenes, because a lot of us and a lot of the kids and a lot of, the people that we market to will never be the celeb, but they can definitely achieve iconic status by being a part of the team that can kind of create greatness, and that's what the power of influence can do for you.
You mentioned like a few points, right? But I want to know where this whole weird trend of CGI, of like computer generated influencers fit in. Because how do they have a network of influencers or whatever it might be. I still don't understand how this like really works and effectively for brands.
Yeah, I think it's whack. But here's the deal, right?
Is it just a gimmick?
Here's the deal. So first I have to level set on who I am, right? Fair. I'm as analog as you can get. You know, like if you want to call me, here's my cell number. If you want to email me, here's my email number. If you try to text me, I've never texted a day in my life.
He's got a pen on his hat.
You know what I mean? Sorry, I don't. Yeah, you got it up here. Sorry, that wasn't for cause, right? It does say Team Epiphany. Shameless plug. But you know, I'm not about like technological shortcuts. Right. You know, I believe in the power. I come from an era of like meeting people and having a dialogue with people, right? So it's like if you text me, it's going to bounce back. Mm-hmm. If you want to call me, I'll pick up the phone. You know, you might get 10 seconds, you might get 10 minutes, you might get 2 hours. But the difference is like I like to connect with people. Right? And I think that's one of the things that I think this generation now that lives in this microwave culture, you know, miss. Mm-hmm. You know, so when you start thinking about like when I grew up, it was like, you know, I'm throwing parties in New York City. You know, it's me, legendary Damon, my friend, you know, Stephen Malbin, when he's created Frank magazine while he was at Georgia State, like we're throwing parties called Spread and we're doing El Flamingo, and I'm working with Jessica and Lublin over at Cheetah, and you know, like we're throwing parties, like, but the difference is like always on my hip, I had this thing called a two-way pager, right? Right. I mean, I'm even old enough that I had the black one before there was the Time Port silver one, and you know, you'd go out with the intention of meeting people to reconnecting with them the next day. And I would go and, you know, I have my two-way pager and I reach out and I beam it and, well, okay, you got my contact, I got your contact. And then we would have actual, like a real relationship with people, right? I remember, you know, first time I met Puff and I was so hyped. Like I literally came back to the office like, yo, I met Puff. Like, yo, I got Puff's two-way. Like, yo, what up? And the next day I was like, oh, well, what do we do with it? I don't know. What are you going to call Puff the next day and say? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? But I was hyped the fact that like he gave me the time of day, that we had a dialogue, a conversation. He may not remember me or I remember him, and that's what it was. So when you're gonna go to the CGI influencer, 21 gigawatts, like all of that stuff doesn't work to me. You know what I mean? Like when you got these fake influencer companies, you know, talking about like, oh, like we have these algorithms and, you know, we can plug you with these different influencers because they're on YouTube and like all these things. I'm like, yo, I don't really care about that. That's not my business, right? When you're really looking to kind of like the world that I live, drive a consumer to purchase, it comes from trust. And I would believe that the people that we're marketing to probably are a little bit sharper than believing something that like, you know, someone created on their laptop, like straight up, you know? So if like that's what it is, that's what it is. That's not my business. But, you know, I would just say it is a weak point in culture when we can look at, you know, like CGI influencers, what you call them?
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, they call them artificial influencers. They call them,
I almost cursed on this podcast. I literally almost cursed.
By all means.
It's called fuckery. Okay, like all right, like that's what it is, you know. And it's like, hey, if that's what you subscribe to, cool, bro, go for it. You know, I got some lugs for you to buy next week. You know what I mean? Like in a refrigerator with no door. Like I'm good, B. Like, you know, we're working with real people doing real things, and I don't think like, you know, I thought cars would be flying by the time that I'm 40, right? Guess what? I'm good. You know. I drive every day. Like it's all good. I don't want to be in the Tesla that's crashing. You know what I mean? In the third lane. Like I got my hands on the steering wheel, fam.
So, I mean, between all that and then you have the whole talk for micro influencers is kind of the big thing now. But then you scale it all the way up and you have Hove and Puma, which you know him going as or signing on as a creative director. Mm-hmm. Again, it just seems like another one of those, just a title placement, right? Yeah. In reality, do you know, I think I know your answer to this, right? But is this influencer market, like, are we reaching a bubble, so to speak? I mean, you have Kylie Jenner making, I don't even remember what the sum was.
$1 million a post?
Yeah, something like that.
At least.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a sad place for global culture where our kids are being influenced by these people that are fabricated. Mm-hmm. That's basically just a stain on all of us. Right. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, hey, yo, we got the most Fugazi president in the world, right? And it's because of the same kind of thing. Yeah. You know, like, so when you start thinking about like what's important to culture and who's driving it forward, like, you know, I would just say the challenge with me is the fact that, you know, you think about the world, you know, it's like I market to such a small percentage of it, right? The larger swath of this consumer base, these are the things that they're looking up to. Like, you know, like 1 minute, like you could be Kylie Jenner and, you know, sell close to $1 billion in cosmetics, you know, because her lips are plump. And the next day she can decide that she's going to deflate her lips and her business is still doing the same thing. You know, for me, I'm kind of like scratching my head. I'm like, yo, what's going on here? Like, what's going on, fam? Like, somebody want to like tip me in? But the difference is that this consumer is so celebrity, you know, infatuated that, you know, they can get away with anything. And I just think that I'd like to, you know, I like to represent, like, you know, the realness. You know, I like to represent the best side of human culture. You know, like, that's not what we subscribe to. And I think, you know, it's probably the reason why my agency's the size that it is, and I'm comfortable with that. You know, because I like what we do. I like, I can look at myself in the mirror in the morning and appreciate, you know, our approach to solving brands' challenges. And I don't think we really take advantage of anyone. And I think that we actually inspire people to learn more and be better, you know? So it's like, if we're doing Nike Equality for All-Star Weekend, you know, in New Orleans, and, you know, Nike tasks us with the ability to do that experience, you know, it's like, it was us that was like, hey, you know, we don't want to show up to New Orleans, probably my second favorite city in the US, you know, with another 3-ring circus. You know, that this community doesn't need a pop-up circus and that's leaving in 3 days, right? This community needs, you know, tools and empowerment. And, you know, what we did for that was literally like, you know, Jared on my squad, who co-leads our strategy team, you know, wrote curriculums about like wellness and muscle memory and nutrition and yoga. And, you know, we wrote curriculums for the kids. And then we allowed, like, the athletes that we had an hour with who normally come through, take pictures and leave, we allowed them to actually teach the curriculums that we wrote to the kids that were there, right? It's just a matter of, like, when you have the opportunity and you have the tools and the power, it's very easy for agencies and people to take the easy road out. But if you're connected to the communities on the ground and you want to see those people do better, you create programs like that. And, you know, and I think that's ultimately, you know, I would say, hopefully my dad would be proud, but that's a differentiator between us and what a lot of other people are doing. Like, they're taking advantage, and they're not empowering. And, you know, you'll have to answer to that, you know, but it's a matter of how you use your power. And I hope that, you know, yes, you got to keep the lights on in TE, and yes, we got to be profitable, and yes, I got to do bonuses and half-year bonuses and raises and all those different things. But before all of that happens, it's like, I got to get up in the morning and look at myself and be like, hey, like, how did I help this generation? How do I help these consumers be better people? And brands have the power to do that. And hopefully that's what influencer marketing is for, because that's what that's what the personalities and the beings behind the work actually can engineer.
Right. It's not something where it just solely lives on social media, right? You guys have long done event and like experiential marketing, right? And I think a lot of brands are just assuming like, no, we just have an Instagram post and we're good. Like, it doesn't have to be anything where people experience.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the wins with brands is when you can kind of mirror what's going on in the real world, what's going on digitally and socially, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we come from. So there's a reason why like 65% of our income comes from experiential, and probably another 15-20 comes from social, because all we're doing is really connecting the dots between the digital and the real. And that's what we do well, you know? So it's like, you know, and I'm extra competitive. The other thing that most people don't know about me is like, you know, I play basketball, like, I don't miss free throws.
Speak on it.
You know what I mean? I'm mad competitive. I don't want to beat you by 2. I want to skunk rule you by halftime and then have you going crying home to your moms, right? So like, the difference is like, we're very competitive about it, but you're not going to find some other kids to produce a better event than us. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, challenge.
Tap dance. I know that episode very well. Cosby's, I know that one. One of my faves. So where do you, I mean, I guess you kind of said it there. Where do you see this like influencer marketing going? Is it going to really be stepping away from social media? I mean, if social media just ceased to exist.
I hope it does. Influencer marketing is basically old school marketing, word of mouth.
Right.
Right? That's what it is. Now we can quantify its value, you know? So if you can kind of look at influencer marketing as kind of like a tree. Like, I have a money tree in my crib that, like, when I think me and Lisa first started dating, we had it, and it was literally like, you know, one of those like straight up Chinatown money trees that kind of come in those little things that's like this big. And now this tree in our house is like 8 feet tall, right? And along the lines, you know, you lose some of the leaves. you know, and you might lose a whole branch, you know, but the tree is still growing tall, right? So I think influencer marketing, I think a lot of leaves will be falling off, you know, and I think it's the people that have abused and bastardized the craft. It's a craft of trust and yeah, it's a craft of trust. And I think the people that have, you know, that have not lived truthfully or honestly, I think they will be the leaves that will fall off, you know? So when you think about, you know, all the PR agencies in the world that claim that they can do influencer marketing, but, you know, all they're really doing is kind of like looking at follower count and then hitting the info button and then offering $1. And I think they're going to die out. You know, I think the whole thing of, you know, having to say sponsored in your posts now, I think is killing it a little bit. I think that's going to get atrophied, and if you will, you know. And I think influencer will always live, but when you really think about influencer marketing, just think about word of mouth. Just think about the people that you trust. Just think about the people, you know, the people that you know personally are the reason why you consume products. You know, I'm a watch guy. I love watches. I have a lot of IWCs, and they did a birthday party for me at their store where there's like maybe like 6 or 8 of us, and you know, brought us food and, you know, a lot of liquor or whatever. But we were able to actually take apart the complications in our big Pilot watch, and we took it apart and put them back, and it was like a 4-hour birthday thing, and it wasn't really like we weren't turned up, but it was like a really great experience. And what those people that got invited to that experience learned was about watches. It wasn't anything about IWC, you know. And what IWC did is that they actually taught people what they were buying. You know, a lot of people buy Rolexes and even like this watch I have here today. You know, it's like one of my first watches that my wife bought me, and it has absolutely no movement. You know, it's gold, it's carbon, you know, it's like $7,500, but it doesn't have any movement, you know? And it was because when I was buying it, I didn't know anything about movement in watches. I just thought I was buying a gold watch, right? And what IWC did that day was that they made everybody at that table knowledgeable and experts about the craft of horology. That's what they did. Whether that those people come back to IWC or go somewhere else to buy another watch, they taught those people about what they were seeing, you know. And I would probably tell you, actually I do know that everybody at that table came back and they actually bought a watch, but the difference was the fact that you were able to teach people something, they were able to learn something, they were able to connect their learning back to a brand, and that's something that stays with you longer than anything you'll ever have. So I think when you think about trust and you think about education and you think about being challenged, that's what word of mouth and influencer marketing does for people and for brands. And I think if we get back to the core ethos of what influencer marketing is, that's what it is. And that's how you engender trust, and is because there's a passing of knowledge to one another, and now you learn something, and now you trust that person because they gave you something that's valuable. And that's what influencer marketing is. We've gone far away from it, but at its core, when those leaves fall off, like, we'll be back home, and I'll be right there waiting.
Come to my events.
Come.
I think another point I want to touch on is, you know, with the marketing advertising side of things, is something I saw you speak on your Instagram. If you want to shout out the handle real quick.
Coltrane Curtis.
You already know. But you pointed out that Adweek had published their power list earlier this year, and also just a week ago, Lindsay Peoples Wagner published a great article on The Cut about being black and working in fashion. But going back to the power list, there weren't many people of color on it, correct?
Yeah. They put Indra from Pepsi on it. Yeah. That's like the token one. Yeah. They got Indra on there.
1 in 100, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's sad, man. It's sad, you know. But I think that, and it's not sad for the people that were excluded from the list. It's sad for the next generation of people that don't see the people that don't see themselves represented on that list. It's not the fact that I barked out because I wasn't on that list, or you know, or Hov wasn't on that list. Oprah wasn't on that list.
They're worth billions of dollars.
You know, or like you know. I mean, yeah. It's not about us personally. It's about the next generation that doesn't see themselves being included.
Right.
You know, and I think it can do two things. You know, the young kids can give up or the young kids can fight. But the fact that they have to have that decision at such a young age, not that they're reading at age, but some kids are, and I think I went to Morehouse, starkly famous black college, Atlanta, Georgia. I went there because Spike went there and Martin Luther King went there, and, the challenge for me while I was there was I didn't have anything to look up to or to aspire to except for who my dad was, because the school hadn't really laid out, a clear career trajectory for somebody who didn't want to be in finance, or who didn't want to go to medical school, right? And
which those are their two biggest.
Those are two biggest things. Or you go or you go preach in your daddy's church. That's the third one, right?
Yeah, my closest friend was a finance major there.
Yeah, and they do extremely well. But if you can imagine me at Morehouse, first I had dreads. Second, it was 93, and I didn't have a real visual role model as in terms to what I wanted to become and who I wanted to be. And so, when I saw that list come out, I would have thought of how I would have felt if I was a 16-year-old freshman, not seeing anybody that looked like me on this list. I would just think that there's not a place for me there. And I think that's tragic, and I think, I try to do things, I have a scholarship at Morehouse, that scholarship pays for the kid to go to school, also pays for him to come to New York and have an internship with us and work with us at Team Epiphany. And we're doing what we can block by block. But when you have those those slaps in the face and just not being able to be represented, it's it hurts, and it takes people like me and people way better than me to actually call that out. We did the same thing earlier in the year with Footwear News. Where again, they put a list of the most influential people in the footwear industry, and there wasn't any person of color on the list, and I had to call it out. It was I get it, but come on, man, is James and it's just all types of people that should have been on that list. So I just think either you ask to be a part of the list or you say fuck it and make your own list, and that's basically where I come from, where it's if it doesn't exist, build it and make it yourself, and that's what I subscribe to.
Yeah, I mean, the onus is definitely on on Adweek, on any publication that's reporting on it, but there has been some instances, in recent memory in which some brands have advertised a bit insensitively or made a few mistakes in their marketing campaigns. So, I mean, there still is obviously a lack of diversity.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's a whole completely different issue. Being acknowledged as the top ballers in the industry is one thing.
Right.
Lack of diversity in this industry is probably worse than, being acknowledged in those publications.
Right.
And it's a big challenge, I'm a black guy from Bed-Stuy, and, I run an agency of about 80 people. And, how many brothers work for us? About five. So when you start thinking about that, I think when most people come in the shop that you're going to see a lot of people that look like me and you don't, and it's not because I've not been trying.
Right.
It's because, we as a black community, we're not risk takers. Right? My dad was an entrepreneur, the only thing I knew was to work for myself. So it's when you go to these colleges, they train you for a craft and a skill set and a position and a job. So by the time that we're actually looking for people that look and feel like me, those kids are often running into their careers because they've been focused on that since junior year in college.
Right.
So for us, what me and my guy Jarrett, and the agency as a whole is we try to find us before, our career paths are already kind of mapped out, so it's very important. So Jarrett went through a program called Prep for Prep in New York City, that got him into collegiate and then got him into Wesleyan and got him into collegiate and then prepared him for Wesleyan, so we now have a partnership with Prep for Prep where we do a scholarship with them in Team Epiphany in Jarrett's name where we can find the next Jarrett, before he says hey, I'm going to do something traditional, right? Same thing with me at Morehouse. It's more about we wanted to find the kids before, they decide that they got to be engineers or doctors, or which are great careers. But when you start going to kind of the creative careers, there's just not really kind of that feeder cell that prepares kids for this world. And so, I think my job, over the latter half of my career, hopefully I'm not in the latter half, but maybe I am, is kind of preparing people that look and feel and that have skill sets and a POV on culture the same way that me and a couple of the brothers at the company do. It's my job to find them and incubate them and give them a house to kind of like find their traction and find their direction, because their voice is very, 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 very influential in terms of the way in which brands respect us, target us, and market to us. And without those kids, you're going to find brands continuously making the missteps that they've had. So it's, we can complain about, how we're marketed to. That's great. But we can change that if we actually have people on the inside changing the direction on the way in which brands market to us.
Now, would you have any advice for, I don't know if you want to give advice for young kids that want to grow up and be just like you or have like an agency. I don't know if that's the path that you want to pitch to them, but for any of young kids that are listening to this that want to follow some sort of creative or artistic endeavor, do you have a bit of advice for them?
Yeah, this will sound rather weird, and my wife would probably appreciate it or laugh at me. I never know which way she'll go. But I think it's very important for you to find your soulmate early. Which is completely probably different than something you thought I would say, right? So we're talking about careers, and we're talking about, what you want to do and become.
Yeah.
But I would say, the biggest link to my success, other than my dad being the biggest mentor ever, like my personal superhero, would be my wife. Yeah. Because what she allowed me to do is to be focused. I've been with my wife for, definitely been married for 10. This is why I get in trouble, because the years, they get all screwed up, right? We know we've been married for 10, and we've probably been together for like 17.
Jeez.
I don't know. We've been together forever. Shout out to Lisa, or shots at Coltrane from Lisa. But I think when I saw her, when I met her, I knew I was going to marry her. And I don't think, I think that's a blessing, but I think that we live in a very promiscuous culture. We live in a very short attention span culture. We live in a culture where I read it on the train. I read it on the train on the way here. I never get on the train, but I read it on the train over here. Like literally, like STDs are up like all-time high, right?
Jeez.
Like, right? Some crazy like that, some crazy number, right?
That's
scary.
Right? It's very
Go
scary.
get yourself checked.
Anybody
Right?
else
It's a
listening,
train ad.
please.
Maybe there's a train ad,
like,
right?
Kids are riding the train, reading that.
But like,
what's that, Mom?
I was able to focus on my craft, because I wasn't unfocused and running the streets, and that happened for me at a very young age when I was with my wife.
Right.
So I would say the first thing is find someone that you can be with that supports you even when you fail and when you win. I remember the time when I got fired from Echo, and she was there for that. It was the most traumatic thing ever in my life. I was literally walking around the streets of New York, literally crying, like unconsolably crying, like bar to bar, drinking, crying, drinking, and my wife was there for me. And when we had wins, my wife was there for me. But I just knew that now I can focus and tackle the things from a business perspective. So that would be the first thing that I would do.
Before you get in the other one, I think Elon Musk said something like similar in like an article where he said that is like the only thing missing in his life. It's the only thing that you can't not focus on is being single.
Good. So I'm
being
kicking
alone.
Elon Musk's ass.
Yeah.
Perfect, yo. Perfect,
Yeah.
yo. I ain't buying no Tesla neither, yo.
Not the ones that drive themselves. At least.
Hey, I'm good. I'm good on that, fam. The second thing I think is, finding something that you're truly passionate about, and I think like that happens when you're alone by yourself and you understand what drives you and what you're really interested in. And then I think when you create a business, is creating a network of people around you that aren't anything like you. Human nature is to bring you closer to people who share the same similarities. I think in business, you want to find people who make you strong where you're weak. And sometimes socially that's challenging, but when you really look at it as a skill set perspective, you want to find people that make you better and that make you diverse. So I think like in this world of agencies and diversity, it's like we're extremely diverse, and it's not because like, hey, look, we're diverse. Hit the diverse button, hit the other button on the census shit. No, it's like this is just who we are. Like, this incredible freedom of speech. Our agency is, more than 50% female. is more 50% minority. And it's just a place where, kids can come, argue. And because they argue and they're bright people, the work is better, right? So I just think get a good wifey, or whoever you're dating, right? Do whatever you're gonna do, but just hunker down, and I would say also, have a good network of people around you that you trust, and that make you better and then compliment you where you're weak. And then I think do something that you're passionate about, Like I always said that, the reason why, I created Team Epiphany is because I like to entertain people. When me and my wife got together and we finally moved into our first place, our place became like the house of people, for people who weren't from New York, who couldn't go home for Thanksgiving or Easter, all those things, and our house became a haven for those people. And our company is an extension of our dining room table, if you will. We argue as a family, we celebrate as a family, and I think the kids that work with us, I always call everybody kids, no disrespect to my squad, but I'm 43, I feel like I'm a kid. I'm 42, I'll be 43 in November. I feel like I'm a kid, but I just feel like it should just be a place where people feel comfortable being, and diversity is a big thing. So I would just say make sure you mix it up a little bit and take yourself out of your comfort zone. But those would be the three things that I would say center around success for me.
All right. Just before we sign out, I just wanted to grab, just talk about some fun here.
Uh-oh.
No, I mean, just...
There's some publicists over there, yo. There's three of them looking at you like, all right, don't go rogue, fam.
Oh, no.
Don't go rogue, fam.
I mean...
You see my goon squad? You see them?
Oh, the faces they're giving me right now is so
faces.
intense.
You guys can't see it, but they're looking at us.
The NBA season's coming up. See, that's not so bad, guys, right? See, that's not so bad. But wait, no. No, I just want to know, what you're excited about. You're a Knicks fan, right? There's never really much to be excited about as a Knicks fan.
All right, so I lived in Tribeca. I'm a Brooklyn kid, 514 Monroe Street, crack epidemic, Bed-Stuy, you know what I mean? One avenue off of Gates Ave, I'm from Brooklyn, I spent a little time in Montclair, spent a lot of time in Atlanta, too much time in Atlanta. And I'm a Knicks fan through and through, you know what I mean? And every year the Knicks, thug tier, you think you're going to win a chip. I talk a lot of smack over the summer, I don't know about the Knicks this summer. Yeah. I don't know about the Knicks right now. But I live in Brooklyn. I live in, the real Brooklyn, Dumbo right now. I live in Dumbo. I'm kind of like Brooklyn Nets right now, man. I got to be honest, man.
What?
I got to be honest.
Never
my son loves
you.
basketball, they got some cap room next season.
Sure, a lot of it next year.
You know what I mean? It's always great to be you's a Knicks fan, but I think the brand that got the biggest opportunity to grow and develop into kind of one of those iconic franchises is definitely Brooklyn. And then in my household, we got a couple issues. So Ellington is a huge Kyrie fan, and I'm a huge Kyrie fan. And my man got a Boston Celtics little mini hoop up in the crib, and all he wants to wear is, so all the fly Ellington stuff you saw before, it's not gonna happen anymore. I think that's the reason why God blessed me with another son, because all my kid wants to look like is he's wearing legit leggings, short, he wants to be like this athlete. He thinks he's Kyrie. His handles is not there. He'll never be Kyrie. Love you, Ellington. But the fact that he's a Kyrie fan. Hopefully Kyrie comes to Brooklyn next year. We see him. But here's the strangest thing about me and basketball, because I'm a big ball fan.
Yeah. My
favorite player in the league is DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh no, I love
Boogie is my man. When Boogie went down, popped his Achilles, literally,
sad.
I thought I popped mine. I cried, yo. I cried,
just clicking.
I cried. And then when he signed with Golden State, my wife never comes to me with sports updates, but she's from the Bay.
Came to you with that, huh?
She's from the Bay. She claims she's from San Mateo, but I really think she's from Oakland.
Close enough.
It's
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
just kidding. Shout out to Oakland. I love you guys.
And she she was the first person to bring it to me that my favorite player went to her team, and I'm like, I'd like to see who would I like to see win it this year. I'd really like to see Boogie get a chip.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like to see Boogie get a chip.
He's probably not going to play much. At least he's not going to play till like the All-Star break, if not after.
You know, I mean, it's all good.
But as long as he comes back to that level, because he's not going to stay with them next year.
Yeah, maybe he's coming here. You know,
That's what I'm saying.
maybe he's coming. Maybe he's coming to Brooklyn.
Him and Kyrie would be a problem.
Come on, yo,
But,
let's talk about
only
it.
one way to see.
Let's put that in the air right now.
Man, all the Brooklyn goons, and you got Boogie. Like
I got
he's
Boogie.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a Boogie fan, but I'm really excited for the NBA season. I'm also excited that all the players can. This is the funny about the NBA, right? All the players can now wear any sneakers they wanted on the court.
Yeah.
Wasn't that happening already?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Okay,
so.
I was just saying.
I think it's just a color code.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's
same thing.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I'm more about. I think the players in the NBA should have to wear sneakers that fit in their team colors. That's just me. I believe that. Like, you know, like I'm the kid that's like. Actually, I'm wearing my favorite sneakers of all time, Huarache Fab Fives, and I just really. I like that team camaraderie in sports, you know. But you know, I understand everybody's got a deal and everybody's got to sell sneakers. But I'm a big basketball fan, man. Yeah, I'm a big basketball. Yeah, the Christmas Day shoes are big, so I'm a big basketball fan.
Is that really why? It's just for camaraderie?
I think so. I mean, I think like,
or why you prefer it is what I mean.
I just think it's about team basketball, man.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I think like when you look at the great teams of old, you know, again, I'm 42, I'm old, but you remember Showtime and Magic and them, you know.
Right.
Worthy might have had on his New Balance, you know, and Magic might have had on. I think at the time he had he had like a weird Magic sneaker for a time, but you know, he had on the Converse, you know, he had on the ERXs and he had on the Energy Waves and all the fly stuff, and you know, and then you had the Forces on the team. I think Cooper had on like Air Force Ones, but they were all in the team colors. I just kind of like really felt like when Boston dropped the black sneakers, you know what I mean? Like I felt like that was fly.
Yeah.
You know, now I just feel like everybody's going for self. But you know what? Everybody is going for self. You know, you can have a dude on the team that's making $40 million and a dude that's on a 10-day contract. You know, so that's kind of like where we're at. I think there's an interesting story the other day. You think about. You know how much money Dr. J made in his career, and you look at kids on the end of the bench on the 76ers, and they actually make more money than Dr. J made in his entire career in a season, right? Like so, like the reality is like it's changed, it's a business, but I would like to see that team uniform. And and challenge them. It's not like the fact that the sneaker companies couldn't come up with something fresh in a colorway to rock on the court, but. Those are one of the things that I like, but I do love basketball, man.
So you did enjoy the LeBron James, Tom Brown suits?
I'm good, fam. I'm good, fam. I'm good, yo. You know what I mean? Like my thing is like, I mean, everybody else had in a suit. LeBron had a $45,000 alligator duffel. Like I get it, Bron, I get it, but why I was upset about it? Nobody had on the traditional Tom Brown kilt. Nobody had on the skirt, yo. That was the biggest miss right there. You know what I mean? Like big athletes, 6'9" in shorts, look a little crazy. Yeah. But like I would like to see one of them in one of the skirts, yo. That's just me. Like I probably have more man skirts than most men and most women combined. But like the difference is like if you're gonna do Tom Brown, I need to see a skirt. I need to see the whole thing.
The whole way, yeah.
Just do it. Yo.
I mean, JR could have easily been talking.
JR could have did it.
Yeah.
JR could have did it. I'm gonna talk to him, yo. That's that's one of my other favorite players in the league, yo.
Yeah.
Like it's like him. Like I like all the hood kids, Skip to Malu and and Jamal Crawford and
shout out to Seattle.
They're just bringing back. You say Rayford, they're just bringing back and one with KG's coming back as creative director.
Yeah. That's okay. No worries about that. That's all.
But please help them bring back the N1 mixtapes. I mean,
N1 mixtapes we can bring back, but the sneakers and the product they can keep.
Yeah,
I was never on that way.
Except for them, those old school mesh shorts are still probably one of the best basketball shorts.
The mesh shorts were good. I'm still wearing I'm just gonna age myself. I still have all my old Olafs.
Oh,
my old Olaf shorts from back in the day.
Tight.
So I still I'm old, man. I play ball, man. It's all good, yo. I'll definitely. I'll take anybody's bet. If you want to meet me on the court, I'll take your money. It's fine. Old school. I'm like that old guy that shows up in the Con Ed outfit and Timberlands. I'll take your money, yo.
We had Bobito on last week.
Yeah, I'll take Bobito's money too.
Have you played him before?
No, I haven't. Yo. He's a little older than me. It's okay. I'll keep it cool for him. But you
guys should just go shot for shot.
Nah, he don't want that. He don't want that.
Even the playing field a little bit.
He don't want that, yo.
From the free throws.
They don't want that,
free throws.
They don't want that. I got the old school white boy game, yo. You don't want no. I don't miss open jumpers and I don't miss free throws. I can't run up and down the court with you, but I ain't gonna miss it.
Yeah, that's the free throws.
That's
knows
a
how to
fact.
move without the ball.
It's
right?
all good.
Yeah,
It's all good.
yeah.
I did go to the Big Three the other day.
Oh, the championship.
Yeah, yo.
Yeah.
I did go to the Big Three. I took my son there.
What do you think about that league?
It's bittersweet for us because we own this game called Fight Ball.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure out what we want to do with it. But Ice Cube has done amazing things with Big Three. I love to see the brother winning, and I love to see the growth from the players of last year that couldn't make it through like one game. You know what I mean? AI looked like he was literally like
Winded.
He had a pint of Henny in the water bottle. You know what I mean? And then you didn't play the season, and then you got kids on the court that can actually play. Like Birdman was playing, and Abdul Rauf was playing, and his jumper was just wet, like old school.
Yeah, I saw him walking up.
Big Baby was playing. So it's good to see those kids that can play. Like Baron Davis, my homie.
Yeah.
Just good seeing them play. So I think it's a great idea, great concept, and I was excited to see that. But I go see all types of basketball. I went to New York for New York. I brought my kid.
Yeah.
I'll take him to go see girls' high school basketball because I think like that's probably the best sport for the young kids to go watch, to play, to learn the game. I think Steph Curry has fucked up all these young kids' game. It's like step in the gym, I'm open. Like, you're not, fam. Like, it looks good, but like, I've watched the masterclass with Steph and my son multiple times, and, I love basketball. So, I hope Ellington plays, but I just want him to have the skills enough to be able to make his high school team and play basketball. That's all that I want. We ain't going much farther than that.
Right. Yeah. We're shooting for that for now.
Oh yeah, no, he'll own the team. He'll own the team, yo. He'll own the team, yo. He'll own the team.
All right. Anything else? Any final last words?
One, thank you. Two, I just, from business to business and seeing where you guys are here, and, at Hypebeast and Kev and, and the squad that you guys got here, I would like to think if I, were doing the same thing that you guys are doing, I'd be you guys, I think we're the reflection of who you guys are on the other side. And I also know how difficult it is to do things that seem basic to most people. So just wanted to give you guys props, and thanks for having me come in.
Yeah, we're on this side where we're just helping amplify some of the stories that you're telling. So you guys are creating it. We're trying to bring it out to the masses. So
I'm hyped to see Hype Fest too, yo. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Y'all ready?
Let's get it.
All right, you heard it here first, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.